think everybody has found a seat, hopefully grab something to drink. So, welcome back to Stockholm Engineering Leadership. Thanks to Schibsted and Schibsted Learning Lab for hosting us. That's the only thing I'm going to pitch about Schibsted today. Thanks to Viktor and Stefan that actually encouraged us to start this group again. I think we had our last meetup a year ago, which is way, way too long ago. But they had this idea of a talk they wanted to do, and we thought it fit perfectly with what we are about. And also, very happy that there was so much engagement after this long time. We got a lot of sign-ups really, really quickly. And then life happens, and a lot of people fall off. But you brave souls actually made it. And I'm really happy to see you here, and we get inspiration to work harder actually arranging these events. There are some organizers here. Can you raise your hands? So if you want to engage yourself in this group, if you find passion in these topics, if you have a network, if you like to arrange forums for people to meet and learn from each other, just reach out to me or them, and you're welcome to join our group. But then you need to do the work too. We are 700 people in this group now, which is a lot for Stockholm interested in this topic. And I think it shows that we have many people that want to learn from each other and have experiences to share. Bathrooms, I think, are in the lower left corner from where I'm standing. Exits there and there if something happens. We need to vacate the premise by 8, otherwise the guards won't be happy. So as we have understood in our industry, having teams with a strong sense of mission and strong bond between team members are paramount to our success. By getting to a high-performing team, it's harder than just putting a few stars in a room together and giving them a mission. It requires a lot of work, which you know. Every employee deserves to feel that the team they are currently working on is the best team they've ever worked on. And every employee deserves to find joy and a strong sense of kinship to the people they work with. Understanding team dynamics and the role in engineering leadership to facilitate and enable great teams is one of the most important things you do in your roles, or the roles that many of you have.
Can you hear me in the back? Okay, awesome. Hey everyone and welcome. We're glad to be here. I'm glad to be here. Are you glad to be here?
I'm super glad to be here.
This is an important topic for us. We both are very passionate about it. We also think it's important for enterprises, for organizations, for teams. And we've been working with teams in different ways for over 20 years together in various roles. Thank you. And looking back at our time together, team dynamics has, when we look back and look at the challenges we've been having, and when we look at where we are today as an industry, there are a lot of challenges that we're facing that can be explained with and dealt with the use of team dynamics models. And that is regardless of what role you have. It doesn't matter if you're a coach, a scrum master, a manager, a product owner. If you're in a team member, like we can all contribute to the positive evolution of team dynamics, but we need to know how to do that. And that's what we're here to talk about today. And I'm Viktor Cessan. I coach agile and I coach systems, and systems with that I mean either entire enterprises, organizations, or teams.
And I'm Stefan. Stefan Lindbohm, maybe I should say. I'm also an agile coach. My focus is on organizations and product development. My background is as a developer and product owner as well. So you helped me with a click here. So we wanted to start off just by asking all of you. So this is going to be super interactive. We're going to have a few of these. So we wanted to ask you what your hopes for tonight are. So a few of you probably used Menti before. Go to menti.com, use the code, and just type whatever you hope to get out of tonight. We're gonna just let this flow and hope that you get it out of tonight.
We have a very open, rigid script we're following.
It's very open and also rigid.
Yes.
Yeah. That's So lots of inspiration, tools, knowledge, some networking, new ideas, joy, sheer joy. Let's make this happen, right? If nothing else. All right. Truth.
Yes.
I'm not sure we can deliver on that.
we can deliver multiple truths.
We can sort of get closer to the truth, hopefully. All right.
Okay, so
yeah.
starting with some data. Research says that at most 25% of all teams become high performing. And this is regardless of if the team receives support or not, in terms of like from management or in terms of coaches. And additionally, when we went out and asked 100 people who are coaching teams, you know, what are some of the pitfalls that you face in your coaching of teams? And only 8% mentioned that, okay, we are not thinking about team dynamics. So when you combine these two data points together, what do you make of that? We'd like to hear what your conclusions of those two data points are.
Unleashed potential. That's what we think as well.
We have at least one coach here.
Yeah, exactly.
So we don't think about team dynamics because we don't really understand team dynamics, yeah.
Who made this research study? This is based on Susan Whelan's research, and it's the base of her. We're going to get back to this, but it's the basis for her model IMGD. Right. Yeah.
So what the rest of the percentages of the are of the pitfalls? I would have to check. It's on my website, so we can link back to that or send out a link to that. I don't remember them by heart. But this has and continues to intrigue us, and I want to, trigger alert. I'm going to show a slide now that shows a little bit about our view on different models, and I'm going to walk us through it. But there are quite a lot of frameworks out there. There's FIRO, Tuchman, IMGD, SDI, MBTI, DISC, etc., etc., etc. There's like so many models out there. And training on them is not always accessible. Some of them are expensive. Some of them are pretty hard to sell. And not all of them have team focuses. So when we started looking at them and plotting them, the first thing we asked ourselves was, does this have an individual focus or does this have a systems focus, a team focus? And most of the models out there have an individual focus. Some of them have been adapted, or they have added tools, additional tools that are supposed to be helpful for team situations, but that's not where they came. Some of them have no scientific research, and some of them have a lot. No may be wrong, but less at least. So if you look at enneagrams, for example, does anyone know what that is? One? Two? Yeah, a few. When you look at where does that come from, the first origin of it comes from the 4th century, 400-talet, 4th century, right? And there's a Christian... 5th century. And there's a Christian mythic who came up with this model. And it's in use today in teams. And I'm not saying it's a bad model. It's not a bad or a good model, but like how much research was done in a knowledge context in teams working with software development? None. Right. So, and then if you look at which of these have a team focus and which of these have a lot of scientific research, you get to, for example, IMGD. And then FIRO has a lot of research, and it's somewhere in between. So this is a little bit of why we think it's very difficult, because we don't really know which of these are meant for team dynamics. DISC is quite popular, and it's sold as a personality test, as a behavioral inventory, as a team dynamics tool. It's sold as 3 completely different things. Do you want to add something here?
Yeah, we're focusing on like the upper right corner here, right?
Yeah.
So this is what we're trying to do. We move to team-based studies, basically.
Yeah. And so another reason why we think is why we pay attention so little to team dynamics is because agile is, it's a commodity, it's a buzzword. Most management teams know about it. There are studies that show that agile, increases hyper performance, etc., etc. It's an easy sell, and there is a belief in many organizations that people aren't agile because they don't know agile, and the way to make people agile is by sending them to training. And our experience shows that agility happens when the environment is conducive to it.
Yeah, I think you went ahead here.
Did I?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's pretty much what we're going to see here.
Okay.
Right. This is the agile is great, but so what Viktor was saying, like we focus so much of our energy on trying to be agile. We focus on the methodologies. We go to these trainings. We learn these processes, etc., etc., etc. But from our experience, we noticed that when you work on the team dynamics, a lot of the processes they actually follow. So you don't need to put as much focus on the methodologies themselves. Maybe you can use them and sort of drag them in. But with a team on a like a solid journey towards high performing, they will actually ask for these processes when they need it. So one other piece to the puzzle, and that's also the sort of the intro to why we are in this, is that if you just focus on team dynamics, a lot of the sort of agile stuff, the processes and stuff, is going to be much more helpful, and you don't have to push for it. Rather, the team will sort of drag it in. So we're going to make 3 points tonight about all of this. We're going to get back to this, and we're going to go into depth of each of them. The first one is that not all working constellations are actually team, and depending on your working constellation or working group, the dynamics look very different, and you should act accordingly. The second one is that to make a huge impact on teams' performance, you need a model that explains team dynamics. You sort of need to know what's going on to navigate it. And the third one is that the team dynamics that play in a team, they determine the type of leadership that's necessary to help your team transition forward towards high performing. So at any given time, you should adapt your leadership according to the current team dynamics at play.
Okay, so starting with not all working groups are teams. I want to tell a story about 2 different teams, seemingly quite similar, but with very different results. So the first group, because they weren't teams, neither of these were teams. The first group consisted of mostly managers and a coach. This was managers from several different departments of a company, and they were exploring why their EMPS, their employee satisfaction, was dropping, why lead times were increasing, why things weren't going well in their organization. So we worked for about a month together with exploring the company holistically. We put up all the data in a room, and we went through it together, and together we generated some insights. And this group said that, okay, we're going to need to do something about this, and defined a couple of goals and said, okay, we are going to need to collaborate to solve these problems. We can't solve them ourselves. So they agreed on a few goals, and then they started talking about, what do we need to do in order to reach these goals? Well, we need to have these meetings, we need to cancel these meetings and not meet in these separate forums. So they started forming then and there as a team. Now looking at another group. So this group consisted also of managers, a few more coaches. So there was an equal balance in coaches and managers in this group. This group was officially responsible for the organization, and they belonged to one and the same organization. There was an expectation on them to, manage the organization. They did the same exercise, a similar exercise at least. They looked at data, they looked at what it was telling them, they generated insights, and then they came to a position or a point in their planning or their offsite where they said, what do we need to do about this? And they looked at, okay, so here are some different things we could do. These are some potential goals we could have. But then when they came to the point where, okay, let's make a decision, let's do this, that didn't happen. This group split. And there were subgroups that formed. And now let's look at why that happened.
Yeah, so we have, thank you. We have a simple model for this, which is basically based on our belief that for a team to actually act as a team, they need two things. They have to need each other, like they actually have to use each other's help, each other's input to achieve whatever they're trying to achieve. And they also need to have a common goal, like they want to achieve the same thing. So like when both of those things are true, what we have is a team. If, for instance, you don't actually need each other to do your work. Like your work is to do this, and you can do that perfectly fine without the help of the people in your working group. We call it the pseudo team. So you're part of a pseudo team. You may have the same goal. An example of this might be a sales team. A lot of sales teams work like this. So they have the same goal. They're gonna sell the product. They work maybe with the same product, they work towards the same goals, but they don't actually work together. They don't work in a way that's set up for them to need each other.
Another example would be some component teams, where everyone could be a team where there's operations and your sysadmins, or where everyone is a database admin. They don't really need each other to do their job.
Yes, and so if you do need each other, but you don't have a common goal, we call this a temporary alliance. So this could, for instance, be you call it a guild at Spotify, right?
Well, we could take team. We could take teams as an example. So let's say that you have a team that's responsible for Google Cloud Platform, and then you have another team doing feature development. And if this team started adopting Google Cloud Platform instead, they would be much more efficient. So you embed someone from the environment team into the other team. They don't share the same goal, which is conversion in some sort, end user conversion. They don't share that goal, but they need each other in order for them to be able to use Google Cloud Platform. So they need each other, but they don't share daily goals. Yeah,
and a lot of companies also have competency forums where, for instance, front-end developers, they meet up together, talk about the front-end itself. They all represent different teams, so they all have different goals, but they do need each other to fulfill those goals. Like they do need to coordinate the front-end stuff to be able to do their things in their respective teams. If you have neither of these, your coworkers, that's perfectly fine. It could be very nice, right, to have coworkers, but you're definitely not a team. What we're gonna see here. We're gonna talk about teams tonight. This is a prerequisite for talking about team dynamics. Basically, you need both of these.
And the need and the common goal can be subjective and objective. If the common goal is subjective, everyone in the team agrees that this is our goal, but the rest of the organization doesn't believe that should be the goal, then external forces are going to work to break this team up. And need each other could be subjective, or it could be objective. It doesn't matter. But as long as you perceive that you need each other, you're going to collaborate. And if we link back to the stories I told you about the two different groups, one of these, in one example, the second example I gave you, that was a pseudo team. And there was, in that exercise where they were about to agree on common goals, they were supposed to start needing each other to achieve that goal. So you're creating movement here. And movement creates tension. And not all working groups survive that tension. In the other example, they were co-workers. They didn't have a common goal and they didn't need each other, but then suddenly they realized that, and so they just jumped to a team. And there was no tension in this case. There could be tension. We have a question already. Let's take it.
Yes. Oh, wait. Oh, a question from...
Yes.
Oh, sorry.
Can I define need each other? Yes. Mm-hmm. Okay. So the question is, can we define what a high-performing team is, or what a team is, right?
No.
Oh, that they need each other. Can we define what need each other mean?
So I have a very simple answer to this. It depends on the people in the group. If they subjectively feel that they need each other to do their work, that's what's necessary for this to be, because the team is a social construct, and so it depends on the people's perception of their group. Like, do I need my colleagues to do this or not? It's subjective. Yeah.
Okay. So there's if one person is an expert in the team and other people just approve whatever that person says, is that a team or not? So there's a lot of nuances in what you're saying, so it's going to be very hard to give you an answer.
We're going to have open spaces afterwards, and one of the stations is going to be on what constitutes different working groups. So maybe you could take it to that open space station and talk about it there.
Yeah, but so if you think about sports, we have 5 very good goalies. Is that, or 11 very good goalies? Is that a football team? No, it's not. That's a collection of 11 really good goalies. To make a very simple metaphor.
Yeah. Let's go on.
Yeah.
Right. So we do have one more question.
Yes. When there, so what is tension is the question. In this context, what is
what type of tension could happen, right?
Yeah.
Exemplify.
So if you have a group of, I mean, one example that I have been in myself personally when I've been a team member is I've been a part of coach groups, and they're coach offsites, and in these offsites, people come up with great ideas on how to improve the organization. And at the end, someone says, let's agree on some things to do, and who's going to do them. And some people say, I'm just here, to meet you all and figure some stuff out and, be able to do my job better individually. And some people are like, oh, this is awesome. We have these things and we have people who want to collaborate. So in the people who like, I don't really care about this. Oh, why should I set a goal? Why should I start needing someone? That tension looks like that person could either isolate themselves or they could start just disagreeing with the whole challenging and disagreeing with the whole concept of agreeing on goals, which leads to a split of the group. You subdivide the group. Those who agree we should not have common goals, we should not be a team, and those who believe we should be. So it.
I think the dissonance is core of it, right? So
yeah.
some people think of the group like this, and some others think of the group like this. Yeah. And if they don't talk about this, if they don't all agree on the type of group that we're going to be, that's going to create some tension.
Yeah. Okay, let's
move
on. All right,
let's move on. We're curious. What type of working group are you in right now? So I guess you'd have to take your primary group or the primary team that you're working in, the group that you're primarily working with.
Yeah. So if you're not working in a team, if you're managing a team, or if you're coaching a team, what is that? Or that group?
Do you think this is a representative of the groups that we're meeting on a daily basis? I think this might be better off in terms of more team represents than usual.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. Everyone So the question is it in need of everyone in the group? I would say that that's the tension that we were talking about in the slide before. If they're new.
Yeah, so if you have a team of 8 people and 6 people, they are like, yeah, we have this goal, we need each other, you know, let's work together. And then 2 people are like, meh, is that a team? And that I would say that depends on their behavior. If their behavior is destructive in terms of team, like they're actively trying to split the team, they're not a part of the stand-ups, they're not a part of planning, they're not taking on work, they're not collaborating, they're not reaching out, then you probably have sub-teams. If they are, you know, they're following everything, they're collaborating, suggesting collaboration, then you probably have a team. Yeah. So it depends on their behavior.
Do you want to do the takeaways? Key points?
Yeah, you do them.
I'm going right after that.
Oh.
So. All right. The key points of this chapter is that not all working groups are teams. There are actually different types of working groups. And different types of working groups, they exhibit different dynamics, and so you should coach them appropriately. So for instance, don't try to do common goal exercises with pseudo teams. Tension arises when you expose a group to movement between quadrants, and also when individuals within the group, they view the group differently than others. And we just want to mention also that being a team is not always necessary or even desirable. Like there are instances where not doing a team is perfect. It's like it's the perfect solution. Doing something else, just like coworkers or pseudo teams or temporary alliances. But don't try to coach those groups as teams. Don't try to do team exercises with groups of just coworkers, for instance.
Yeah, and even further, like being a team is the norm. So we're trying to push people into team constellations.
By default, pretty much, by now, yeah.
Which we shouldn't be necessarily.
So, let's move on. Team dynamics models. So when you work with a team, so now we're focusing on just teams now, and these models, they only apply to teams again. There are quite a few models. You might have heard about the Tuchman Model, and this is a quote from the original article. The purpose of this article is to review the literature on the development of small groups. It was too long to fit on the slide, but it's pretty much this. So the Tuchman Model that we all talk about, or many of us talk about, it's actually a meta-study on a lot of team dynamics, group dynamics research that had been done prior to this. So the timeline basically of the research that we're working with, at least, is there was some early group development research back in the 50s and 60s. As usual, science is, much, much older than we think it is. Tuchman wrote this article. It was basically like he was handed, this is a true story, he was handed like a box of articles that someone had collected on team dynamics and group dynamics. And he sort of saw the patterns and published this article. And it's actually, like, you can read it in 15 minutes, the full article. So that, I think that's sort of the basis of a lot of further group dynamics developments and research after that. We like to use Susan Whelan's model, IMGD. It's matching, so we're going to use the words from Tuchman because most people are more familiar with those words. But the map, we're going to use the details from IMGD because IMGD is deeper in its research, basically. There are more studies done on actual teams. The statistics that we used in the beginning, they're from that research.
And we've also changed the language a little bit so it's more relevant for context work and teamwork and software development.
Yeah. So let's just go do a quick run through of the model itself. The model, maybe we should have had an overview slide. The model itself is formed of 4 stages, or 5, but we'll leave that for now. Talk about it after the presentation, if you like. So the first one is forming. Again, we're using the Tuchman words, but we're most of the content from Susan Whelan's research. So the forming phase is sort of you're in the forming phase when you're just in the beginning. The team meets. They learn about each other. They learn about the work that they're gonna do. Most of the time, new teams they don't really talk about disagreements. They like to just agree with each other, and there's sort of a tiptoeing. We're sort of feeling each other. There's a lot of need for firm set structures, and I think probably the most sort of solid way of knowing if you're in the forming phase is when people again don't disagree. Like if people are not really comfortable raising a concern, like, so wait, did you say this? But I also heard this, so that might be contradictory. People wouldn't say that in this phase.
So people are spending energy, cognitive energy, and they are emotionally self-regulating to fit in. That is what's most important.
And so when people are comfortable enough with each other,
or when they are they're fed up with each other,
or they're fed up.
Either of those.
Basically, like the threshold of how much I dislike this situation is like that's higher than the discomfort of bringing it up, and it might be because the discomfort goes down. It also, the discomfort with bringing it up goes down. It might also be that the something pushes you to actually speak up. That's when you move into storming. So this is characterized by the team basically testing each other out and finding a way of resolving disagreement. A lot of times there's talk about like, yeah, you need to have conflict. We think conflict is actually deteriorating the relationships. So you shouldn't try to produce conflict, but rather find a good way of resolving disagreement, which we think is really different. It's a different way of thinking, of looking at it, and that'll actually sustain the relationships for the team in the future.
Yeah, and so one thing that's super typical here is competition between team members. And I mean, I want to say that, just talking about myself, white privileged male, and there's another white privileged male in my team, and cockfighting. That's very typical, competition behavior that's very visible in the storming phase. You're trying to say smarter things than the other person. That's typical storming behavior.
So what you're trying to achieve here is to find a good way of resolving disagreement. And after a while, this, like in the beginning, this is super uncomfortable, like bringing something up and etc. And after a while, you sort of get a feel for how I should do it in this specific group context. And so when that happens, you move into norming, which is characterized by finally getting to talk about all the things that you maybe had an opinion on, setting the structure for how things should work, etc., etc. So this is basically where everything comes together. It feels like we're getting on track. Things are like falling in place. You have a big backlog maybe of things that you want to talk through, and you sort of check them off one by one. And after a while, you're like, good, we're in a good spot now.
And we're talking about this linearly, but it's not a linear process. So
it's not at all.
No. But for sake of just like talking about the model, we're talking about them in steps, in sequences.
And so once you're sort of done going through your checklist of things that like this is all the things that we have opinions on, we want to find a better way of working with this. After a while, it stabilizes, and finally you're free to perform basically.
And a lot of people think they are in performing because they compare their level of performance to the way it was before. So they look at, oh, we were storming, or they don't say that, of course. They're like, yeah, it didn't work, and now it's working. Look, we're performing. But there are some very typical characteristics of performing that very few teams exhibit, even though they self-report that they are performing. If you look at again, sports team, they record themselves. They look at, how are we performing? They give each other really lots of feedback. And how many development teams do this? How many development teams go into a meeting room, have a camera, look at themselves, or assess, how really assess technical metrics? How has this process changed, the value we provide, or how many lines of code we commit to deliver value, or the lead time from pull request to deploy. Very few do that, and these are some typical signs of performing. So I just want to say that a lot of our things we are performing because we're comparing things to the way they used to be, which may have been really bad, but that's not really performing.
I think a pretty good way of finding a high-performing team if there's like a dashboard that people actually use, like they look at it and make decisions based on what's on the dashboard.
Yeah.
We see a lot of teams with dashboards, right? But they don't really make decisions based off that data. It's just like, yeah, that's our dashboard thing. Like it's a slideshow. It's nice. But when you actually change your priorities based on that, that's one sign. So we're going to test you a little. So this is a sign of one of the phases. Of course, there's nuances, so you might interpret it in a slightly different way, but mostly this is going to be accurate. So everyone feels that issues regarding ways of working that are important to them have been discussed. What's this stage a sign of? There should have been the other way around. Do you want to show the correct answer? You think? No, wait, what?
We
How
can't.
do I have to actually click it?
Ta-da!
Boom.
Okay.
So
this one was easy.
Yeah. Well, one thing that one point that we wanted to make with this is that sometimes when a team is new, you try to sort of gather them in a room and resolve all the things we have to talk this through so that we can work together. And so you end up thinking that maybe we have to do this right at the beginning, but actually you're not going to be able to do that.
The team has
in the beginning you have to be good enough to start working, and a lot of times that's actually someone just saying this is going to be the way that we start off with. We can revise it later, but we have to get going, because you're not going to actually get to this point in the beginning, and if you try to do that, you're going to have a lot of long workshops. Let me say. All right, so next one. All the team members understand the purpose of the team. When do we need this? I think we have a pretty clear pattern here.
Yeah.
And of course you're correct. So this could also be something that you actually down prioritize in the beginning, where you think that sort of you have to get going, you have to know each other. Let's talk about this later. But actually, this is we're going to get back to this. This is actually what drives the team as a team. Without the purpose, you don't really have a team, regardless of how that purpose is actually formulated. Doesn't really matter exactly the format, but you do need to have it. It's you.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So we want to look at. We're just curious about where you think you are in your teams or the team that you are coaching. So if you could just tell us that. And if you're coaching several teams or working in several teams, just pick one. So we could count and see if it's 25%.
Yeah. It's pretty evenly distributed.
Yeah. And research shows that it's not evenly distributed. It heavily declines as you go further into the group development stages.
Actually, a fun fact from Susan Whelan's research: she studied management teams, and in her studies, none were high performing. 0 in her studies, of course. So that's a sample, like her sample, but I think it's kind of a fun fact.
Yes. So can a team be in multiple stages at the same time? Yes. According to the in Susan Whedon's studies, no, because it's a scientific research, so you are in one phase. But in our work with teams,
so in her research, your stage is determined by like the number of questions. It's a questionnaire, so like the number of questions that matches your like one of the stages. So of course it's going to be like you're going to be here, but in some cases you're going to have a lot of questions that are like matching for one stage, and in others you might actually be all over because you might be showing signs of everything. That makes it a little more difficult to navigate, of course. But knowing this model helps, of course. And also, from what I found is that if you have some unresolved questions in forming, and you also show signs over here, you should probably focus on like the forming needs. Before you try do something else.
Okay, so this is a question we get a lot, and from other coaches, managers, but also from VPs of product who want to have a fluid organization. How long time does it take in order for a team to become high performing? And I want you to think about a team that you worked in that you thought was great, like everything was working great. How long did it take you to get there with this specific team? It's both together. I like the people I work with. We are delivering stuff that's really valuable, and we work in a way that suits my needs or like that works for me.
And I guess the team works in such an environment that nothing changes in the team.
Well, that is your definition. But in terms of like, I like the people, I like the process. We deliver a product that's of value. But then how much change that is a person.
No new member comes, no one leaves.
Well, we're getting into that. Okay, so 6 to 12 months is the majority.
I want to talk to these people. How did this happen?
Okay. So again, then research shows that it takes at least 6 to 9 months before teams become high performing. And this is really interesting because if you look at typical organizations, or this is what it can, so we've been plotting team composition changes in different organizations. And if you look at a typical organization, this is what it can look like. And here are the teams, and here is month by month for just 1 year, and how much it changes month by month. So they all start somewhere, and then if there's
we should also say here that any change, and this is also back to the research, any change of the team composition will throw you back to forming. You might not need as much time to get back again, but you will sort of reset your team dynamics, and you'll have to go through all the phases again. You might be better at it this time around, but still, you're going to have to reset basically every time.
And that also, so that is like 99% of the truth. And the corner case would be like if you have a very stable team that's been operating for a long time, and they get one new member, it's very possible that they integrate that new person in that stage that they are.
What are we looking at? The numbers represent the number of team members in a specific team.
Yes. So you have team members here, amount of team members, month 1, amount of team members, month 2, amount of team members, month 3, so on, so on.
And this is all relative to the individual team's starting date. So this is not a timeline, but
no.
Month 1 for teams.
So all teams... Sorry? So all the teams start here, and when they start, there's a lot of change, and then it becomes white, and after 6 months it becomes green. And green means it has the conditions to become high performing. White means it doesn't have, but it's neutral, and yellow means there is no way.
Well, basically it changed.
Yeah, it's
that
changed.
month.
It's changed, so you reset. And so if you look at a typical organization, or a organization in this case, there are a couple of patterns that stick out here. The first is none of the teams are stable enough in order for them to ever be able to even reach high-performing a high-performing state. The other is a common pattern we encounter in organizations. When you have a team that's stable for quite a long time and become high-performing, management may be, oh, this is a great team. Let's push more people in there. And they break it. Or, this is a great team. These individuals are great. Let's take these 6 people and put them into these other 6 dysfunctional teams and have them fix it. And that doesn't work, of course, either. So what you wind up with then is probably 6 people who leave the company, at least. But this is just what it looks like in one organization. And you can go out and do this in your organizations, and you're probably going to be surprised. Key points in this chapter. So, Tuchman Model is a meta-study, and IMGD offers more depth. The different stages of IMGD has different signs, and team members have different and distinct needs. And finally, it takes at least 6 months before you can reach a high-performing state. Typically,
I should say.
Yeah. Sure, you may 5.5 months or 7 months, but 1 month, 2 months, no.
So the question is, how do you measure this?
Will we be talking about that? No, we will not be talking about that. You can talk about that later. And we have a person here, Martin, who has written recently a blog post about the definition of a high-performing team, where he's broken it down into a holistic perspective on it. So, chat to him. Yes.
You mentioned a situation where more people are pushed to a high-performing team. What are the where it's better to place the bets? Would it be better to put these people in that team, or would it be better to keep the team alone and hope that other teams also become high-performing? Because you mentioned that it might take less time for an already established team to kind of incorporate new team members.
Yeah.
And you have a performing team, and you have some teams that are not as high performing. Where do you place people? What to bet on?
So this is what is your organizational growth strategy? Basically, is the question. And I can't say. There are. I recently wrote about 4 different ways that organizations do. One very much resembles this. Oh, we have a head count. Oh, we have team. Oh, we have need. Push them there. And then every team just oscillates in between, or there's a seesaw between forming, storming, and norming. And they never reach any further than that. But I can't say. That depends a lot on the product strategy. And what happens after month 12? Is this team going to be stable forever? Are they going to split into cellular mitosis? I don't know. So I can't answer that more than so. Okay.
You were doing an intro here.
Oh, I'm doing an intro.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Product owners.
Yes. Okay, I need to hurry up. So, product owners. I was working with a couple of product owners who were starting new teams at the same time. 2 product owners, 2 teams. And they talked about, do you have any tips? Do you have any pointers? What should I think about? And we talked about the importance of having task clarity early on. So what are we here to, what problem are we here to solve? And what is the team going to deliver the first week when they're here? And we talked about, the advice I gave to the product owners was, make a decision you here and now on what they're supposed to deliver the first week when they get together. One product owner said, sure, I'll do that. And the other product owner said, no, I don't really believe in that style because I want to make the entire team more involved in decision making. And we need to do this exploration together because it's going to give them really valuable context that is going to help us in the long run. Okay. So in the team where they had a clear goal, which the product owner had decided in advance, the team got started directly. They changed their process directly because, oh, this is not going to work. Oh, we have a very clear goal. And they left the first week having accomplished something. So come Friday afternoon, oh, they celebrated, they went home, and they looked forward to coming to work. The other team, they were struggling. They hadn't delivered anything. They were just stuck in this artificial harmony where they didn't really want to challenge each other, and they couldn't really deliver something. And so there are some situations like this where, you know, there are things you can do as leaders of the teams that is going to have a huge impact on the team's performance. I think this is you now, right?
This is me, yeah.
Okay.
If the clicker works.
And this is, I mean, the example I gave you is just two people, and you can't really derive that this is the way it always works. But this is more often true for me in my work with product owners. I see this happening. Product owners who early on have give clear task instruction of task clarity, and then compromise, step back slowly but surely, get the team started faster.
Clicker stopped working, so I'll have to do this. So this is a simple way of thinking about the different areas and different areas to work with during a team during a team's development throughout the stages. So this is similar to the people product process split, sort of. We have specific words here for reasons. We can talk about that afterwards if you're interested. But basically, you have roughly 3 main areas that you work with as a team and that you should be aware of as a team. First one is, of course, the people and the relationships. So how do we interact with each other? Basically, everything to do with the social interactions and feedback, etc., stuff like that. You have the task and the goals, of course. What is it that we achieve together? The actual, reason that the team is a team. And you also, of course, have the structures and processes around that to make that work. So how do we organize within the team? We're focusing on within the team here, just for the sake of team dynamics. And so throughout the development of the team and on the journey towards high performing, the leadership styles have to change. So in the example here from the beginning, teams just starting out, you actually need to have active leadership within all of these in some way, regardless of how you do that. But you do have to have active leadership in all of these. So you have to sort of set the base for the team to work from, and then gradually over time, as the team moves into storming, resolves disagreement, you probably need to have active leadership in the people and relationships, but you can sort of let go a little of the others, and then over time you should, as a leader, as leaders within the team, step back and let the team organically take care of the leadership and distribute it amongst them, and that will sort of gradually happen, basically, as long as you let it happen. So this is one way of thinking about the different areas and the different leadership areas that you have to take care of as a leader, or as leaders if you're multiple. So we're curious, where are you most active right now in terms of your own leadership? Regardless of your position in the team, you have some leadership contributions, right? So where are you most active right now? So the reason that we're asking this is that maybe if you're focusing a lot on the structures and processes, maybe that's actually the perfect thing to do, because you have other people in your team who lead in the other areas, or there might actually be a need for leadership in those other areas that you could step up and be part of.
Yeah, we see a lot of misaligned interventions. So some organizations that are heavy on the people and relationships side, they work a lot with individuals. So when an organization is storming, if you have multiple teams storming, the managers are really busy in one-on-ones, talking to all the individuals, trying to help them and trying to change the system by working with individuals, where it may actually be tasks and goals that are the problems, or structures and processes that are the problems. In structure and process-heavy organizations, they try to solve everything with that. And one person said, "Oh, we're storming." We ran a workshop together, and the entire team, and they're like, "Oh, we're storming." And I've been trying to, help this is paraphrasing, but I've been trying to increase our empathy towards each other. That's what we really needed by providing a thought-through, well-planned process that we could work according to. And so when he realized that, he just stopped suggesting how the team should work, and they started talking about, how do you feel, what's not working for you. They just try to understand each other. So depending on the type of organization you are in, you have some tendencies that are really important to be aware of, because they're not usually based on what the team needs. They're more based on the artificial or the instincts in the organization.
We should also again make the point that what's driving the team is always the tasks and goals.
Yeah.
You cannot have a team without a clear task. So if that's unclear, you have to get working on that. Do you want to take over?
Yeah. So a new phenomenon, I'd say recently new, 10, 15 years, is in software development. It's typical to divide the leadership role. So you have an agile coach or scrum master, a product manager or product owner, and then a manager around a team. So you've divided this responsibility that in research was usually held by one role. But what's quite uncommon is co-leadership. So these roles don't really work together. They may even be in different organizations. And when that happens, it's really difficult for the team to be successful, because you have 3 different leadership roles leading in completely different ways and not paying attention to team dynamics. So this is a really tricky situation to be in for a team. And yeah, I mean, to be a little bit provocative, we say that, sure, it's great to have great processes and, have people focusing on people, but again, task. If task is not clear and bought into, nothing else matters. Because, if a team, everyone likes each other in a team, but they're working on the completely wrong thing, they're irrelevant. If they have really effective processes, but they're working on the wrong thing, it doesn't really matter. They're irrelevant. So you have to start with and focus around task. So it's one thing that I've worked with a lot lately is emphasizing that it's the product owner or product manager that leads the team, and the rest are supporting roles. Yeah. Are you? Is that a? Yeah. Yeah. Does it?
So can all of those 3 be one person? Yes.
But then
Yes.
many organizational constructs make it very hard, because there are lots of meetings that managers have to go to, lots of meetings that the product owner have to go to. And so just by that construct, it becomes impossible, because you need to be in 3 places at the same time. But if you deconstrain the entire team, yes, definitely.
But they do have to work together. So this is why they're now in the middle of the circle. So they, regardless of the structure, this has to be co-leadership for the team. They have to work together. So like if it's one person, this is simple, right? Because the one person is going to be in sync with themselves. But three people, 3 different leadership roles, they have to work together to make this happen.
I think you have the clicker.
Well, the clicker is dead.
The clicker is dead. I think that's
Yeah.
a cue.
So let's do this. Do you want to say?
Yeah. So what we've been emphasizing is task. Task is super important. It has to be at the center. And during forming stage, active leadership is necessary in all areas. But as time goes, you can start placing emphasis on other areas. And so as a team gets to norming or performing, you're not going to need to be as active as you've been in the past. And it can even become almost impossible to see who the leader is, because the team is taking so much responsibility together. And when there are multiple leadership roles, they have to collaborate. Yes, question.
Question is, could co-leadership be similar to
situational leadership?
Situational leadership.
I would say that there are 2 different things. So co-leadership means that these 3 roles get together and they talk about, what does the team need in these different areas. A product owner may need to say, I want us to have a retro on how much value we have created. And that is different than situational leadership, which looks at task and attitude, task, knowledge, or an attitude. So it's very different, I would say, when we're talking about this.
All right, let's wrap up, right?
Okay. Yeah.
This is just a nice picture as a wrap-up picture. So, in summary, for all the chapters, this is what we want your takeaway to be. Not all working constellations are a team, and the dynamics, they look different between different types of working groups. To make a huge impact on teams' performance, you need a model that explains team dynamics. So this is the model that we talked about. And the team dynamics at play in a team, they determine the type of leadership that's necessary to transition forward. And that's it.
Yeah, and we have some...
we have some questions, right?
Yeah.
First, we want to say thanks, of course. But oh, yeah, that's...
I have two slides of questions. So the first is just curious.
I like this visually. Like what? Is that the distribution?
This is just feedback for us.
Yeah. This is the first time we're using Mentimeter, so that's why I'm like excited by the graphs and stuff.
We're also super curious about what are some of your takeaways. So what are some of your takeaways?
Need to read Susan Whelan's book. Yes, that's a recommendation to everyone. It's called Creating Effective Teams, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's to the point, quite short. It's easy read.
It's very good.
Yeah. So links, yes, we have some links. We can send. We'll make sure to send them out.
We can. Let's do that in the meetup group, right? After.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
I'm just see if should answer something here.
Pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
Okay.
So we're switching into open space now,
yes.
right?
And with so much people and so little time, what we've done is we've created stations. We have stations 1 through 5, and
6.
1 through 6. We had to change this last minute. So.